So I've been asked to tell you guys a little bit about my experiences within this industry as an actor, lessons learned and whatnot. And I'd like to take you back a little bit and talk about my unconventional route to acting. Yes, I did a degree in chemistry and I had a music minor. And then I followed that up with dentistry, and not a hygienist, not an assistant, a dentist, which took a lot of years. And so the question is, why did I become an actor? And I know what you're thinking. We're all Indian. We're supposed to be doctors or engineers. My path has never been straight. And my family was not all that influential in that sense. There wasn't a lot of pressure or guidance. I just did what I wanted to do. And I really liked dentistry. I was enthralled by my dentist. He told me about my braces. He told me about taking out wisdom teeth. I found it interesting. And dentistry seemed to combine creativity with science, which I was good at both. Allowed me to work with people and with my hands. And I thought someday, I knew it was a passion, but I knew I would go back to my passions that I really loved. So I believed as a dentist, one day I would be the boss, and I would work 10 years and go back to part-time in order to pursue my passions, of which there were many. Truth be told, I thought my return would be to music. However, along the way, I met a patient, and the patient, I asked her what she'd been up to, and she said, I just did my first intro to acting course. I thought, I've always wanted to do that. Tell me more. So she started to tell me more. Now, prior to this, life was good. I had money. I had a great social life. I enjoyed things like running and yoga and tap dancing. I had a wonderful boyfriend who had just proposed, and I owned a dental clinic. So I didn't think anything was missing. But that one day in the clinic, I remembered. I remembered that I had other passions that I was meant to pursue. And this was year 7 of being a dentist. So I was getting close to that 10-year mark. My boyfriend was traveling for work, and I thought I would fill in the time with an extracurricular such as creative writing. And after that conversation with my patient, I thought, well, creative writing, acting sounds like less homework. Little did I know. So after that conversation and in between patients, I clicked a mouse and I signed up for acting. And I fell immediately and deeply. Acting was greater than the sum of all parts. Here was an avenue where the piano or the flute wasn't in my way. I couldn't hide behind the words of my poetry. And it was me in all my vulnerable glory. I got bit. That one day changed my life. And I've never been the same since. So since that fateful day, many things have happened. There was an impending work transfer for my partner to the Eastern Seaboard. There is a longer story here involving him being Irish and having permanent residency tied to his company and waiting for that. So big decisions were made. I sold my practice. We backpacked Asia for 6 months, highly recommend. And we moved to Toronto, where I launched my acting career. And the biggest thing to happen, getting married to the love of my life, who's here. It was and still is the happiest day of my life. Let me tell you, having a clear perspective on what is important in life is essential in this industry. Love keeps us connected. It elevates our relationships. The world is a brighter place with love in it. And I'm telling you this because the law of attraction in life applies in this industry. The happier and more positive we are, the more we attract happiness and positivity towards us. In a word or two, that means gratitude and kindness. Now, I fell in love twice during those years, once with my husband and secondly with acting. The honeymoon phase is amazing. Everything is new. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I was a real keener. The more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. I was learning about compassion, sensitivity, relationships. I was becoming more aware about myself and about others. And all of this was coming from my husband, let alone from acting. Of course, I learned these things as an actor, and I began digging deeper into characters and script analysis, breath, voice, movement, improv. There seemed to be no limits to the things I could learn, and I was excited about all of it. I remember saying many times how much I loved being a baby in this field and that I hoped to be one forever. So we're in Toronto, and I hire my first agent, and I start auditioning. And bang, I booked 3 commercials in 3 months. And I started auditioning regularly. I was booking roles in independent films, eventually in TV and film. I was doing really well, in the words of my agent, booking a few times a year with her, and then finding my own work outside of that with several other independent productions. When I look at my resume, in fact, I would say that 70% of what's on there from that time came from my own initiative. Aside from the hard work, I was chasing down the auditions and I was networking. And it's true what they say. If you book 5% of the time, you're doing well. Our jobs as actors is to be great auditioners 95% of the time. That means you go through 95 auditions and book 5 if you're lucky/talented. Think about that. In the beginning, I felt only pure joy and gratitude. It was 5 minutes in my day where I wasn't putting a needle in someone's mouth. What's not to like? By this time I practiced dentistry part-time and I still liked it, but I realized I wasn't passionate about it. I was good at it though, and I liked it well enough to continue to do it part-time, and for that I'm grateful. But if I did it full-time, I started to feel like I was being smothered, and that like started to dissolve into dislike. In acting, I was constantly craving something new tools, new explorations. I traveled to New York to study at Stella Adler Studio. I auditioned for and I trained with some of the biggest names in Vancouver, Toronto, and LA. I was learning how to toss out habits that got in the way of authenticity. Now, teachers always talk about being authentic and real. And it took me a long time to realize that not every teacher was good for me. I needed a safe space to play and discover who my actor was. I think many actors go through this. Teachers, by virtue of being people, will have biases in terms of what they perceive to be good acting. Inevitably, you may run into a teacher whose goal is to make you into a mini version of themselves, whether they are conscious of this or not. I am profoundly indebted to and grateful for good teachers, and I've had some amazing inspirational ones. And for me, the trick has been whether I feel brave enough to be me versus trying to achieve somebody else's ideal, or worse, feeling shut down. In the end, the camera wants to see you. And indeed, that's what the camera is skilled at seeing. If you aren't being you, the acting starts to look contrived and fake, and the camera picks up on that right away. Sometimes taking a break from classes is good, though. It allows you to find yourself again. There's plenty of other classes that you can take that allow you to be inspired, whether it's through movement or voice or improv, that won't take away from you. So I finally found myself heeding this advice about taking a break from classes from a close friend and top Canadian director when I moved back to Vancouver. Vancouver has been a change from Toronto, and I'd be lying if I said it was easy. Changing cities just when you're getting traction it's a difficult transition. My expectation was that because I moved to Toronto as a newbie, I only had student films on my resume, that coming to Vancouver would be easier. I could pick up where I left off. After all, I now had union status. I had 5 years of TV and film under my belt. What I discovered was the opposite. I was at ground zero and I had to start again. These last 3 years have been challenging, and I've often questioned my place in the industry. However, I've continued to persist, pushing where I can and celebrating the milestones. And this is important, to celebrate the milestones. I've had my first lead role in a professional theater production. I've developed my first full-length play, workshopped and chosen by Vancouver Asian Canadian Theatre, and they chose it out of 3 plays to go forward to the next stages. It's important to celebrate these milestones and look back at where you've been and where you are now. My husband always reminds me, think about it, sweetie, 5 years ago, did you think you'd be in Toronto auditioning, booking things? You were a dentist. I've realized that developing my own work is creatively fulfilling. And we as artists We have a need to create something. We have a need to express what is on our minds and in our hearts in whatever medium, whether it's acting, writing, could be painting, composing music, dancing. There's a multitude of ways. Still, there are days when I question if I've made the right decisions, and during those times I look for new inspiration. I just came back from working in Toronto at the request of my agent there, and I've had several auditions, good responses. Sometimes I just need to know that I've still got it. And other times I need to be reminded that acting is what saved me from a mundane life. Because in this industry, we do have to keep the love alive, much like we do in the world today. In all the years that I've been asked, why did I become an actor? I've only been asked once, why did I become a dentist? It was a good question. You know, I have to say I have no regrets. I've always followed my heart, and I've always loved many things. My path is my path, and it's different from many others, and that's okay. We don't have to be the same, and it's our uniqueness that allows us to shine. That's it. Thank you.